Are you ready to overcome the complexities and burdens that come with your success? Join the team at Centura Wealth Advisory in the Live Life Liberated podcast. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Live Life Liberated with the team from Centura Wealth Advisory. Today, Jonathan Freeman is on the microphone. Jonathan, how are you, my friend?
Oh, very good, Eric. Very good. How's your day going?
It is fantastic. We were talking just before the podcast started about how you are in kind of a little bit of a heat wave over there, and I'm freezing because we've got 55 mile an hour winds and it's like 37 degrees. So I'm inside hunkered down.
Well, guess what? You average those two together and it's a pretty nice day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you've got a guest on the show today. Who'd you bring on?
I did. I have Seth Meisler joining me in studio. He has been a recent addition to the team here, and we thought it'd be great to come in and have him share his experience and a little bit more about himself and who he serves. So he's joining us from lovely and maybe slightly colder than San Diego, Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Oh man, Seth, I am so glad you and I are kind of in the same region. I'm in Omaha. So the wind that we're getting, you may be getting. I apologize for that. But, I'm sure you've lived through worse. So welcome to the team. I'm so glad you're here.
Well, thank you. Nice to be here.
All right. What are you guys talking about today, Jonathan?
Well, really, it's about Seth's journey. He has an amazing background. He has more acronyms on the end of his signature block than I do. So comes with a lot of credentials, a lot of experience, and just wanted to share really about his journey and how he got to Centura and what he brings to the table in terms of our expanded capabilities, both as a firm as well as to the local market in the Midwest.
Fantastic. Well, I'll be sitting here with the rest of the audience learning all about Seth. Thank you so much for bringing him on the show.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
So, Seth, good morning. I'm sure this is a bit new for you, but I've got a few more stripes on my shirt for doing podcasts. But thanks for joining me and also giving our listening audience the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better and your background. So, in preparation for this, I had to do some research on Minneapolis to make sure both myself was versed and in case any trivia came up, as well as just giving the listening audience some facts about Minneapolis. But I didn't realize, given that your music background, there was so much music history that emanates out of Minneapolis. I mean, Prince, one of my favorites, is born and raised in Minneapolis. Huge, I'll call it rock genre individual that really changed things. And Bob Dylan attended University of Minnesota, So lots of music history, and I know that's rubbed off on you a bit. Maybe you can share around that. But, many large, I'll call it public companies, large corporations also call Minneapolis home. And Target is one, just to name many others that I'm sure are quite familiar in your backyard. So you've been there a while. Your family both reside and have enjoyed the outdoors there. Maybe give us a little bit of background on yourself and what it is like to live in lovely Minneapolis, Twin Cities.
Sure. Thank you very much. So I'm not native to Minneapolis, although my wife is native to Minneapolis, to Golden Valley and specifically. Speaking of music, my wife's uncle went to University of Minnesota and was in the same fraternity with Bob Dylan for when he was there for, his nanosecond at the U.
Nice.
And he went to, he was a camper at the same camp that one of my kids attended as well. So
a lot of history there.
There were some music connections there, which is kind of fun.
Now, what's your favorite instrument?
Probably piano, but I like guitar as well.
Okay.
So it's kind of cool. The music here is amazing, both in terms of classical, jazz, rock, etc. I mean, it really covers the genre, or every genre. I'm actually originally from Detroit and went to University of Michigan in Ann Arbor and met my wife in Chicago. And at a certain point in time, she said, "Hey, we have 3 kids. I really would like to go back home to Minnesota." This is very common among Minnesotans to return and be in a place that has family members and grandparents, et cetera, for the kids. And so we moved from living in the city of Chicago to Minneapolis about a little over 15 years ago and haven't looked back. And it's been very nice being here.
So now tell me, one of your other fun or hobbies is fishing, fly fishing, I believe. Did that start in Detroit, or did you really pick that up once you moved to Minneapolis?
Yeah, so I had never picked up a fishing rod until I met my wife's father, my father-in-law. So never fished before. And he liked to fish. He still likes to fish quite a bit. He doesn't like to fly fish, but he likes to fish for bass. And so over time, go fishing with him. And then decided to try out fly fishing. Thought it was a lot of fun. We would do it on trips to North Dakota and to Wyoming, etc., and continue to enjoy it and continue to fly fish.
That's great. Now, do you tie your own flies, or do you just buy them off the shelf?
I don't. I currently buy them or know people who tie them. So maybe a future endeavor. I did go to a fly tying lesson about a month ago or so.
Very cool. And then the other big thing that we share in a common philosophy or common interest is philanthropy. And I know philanthropy kind of is embedded in who you are and what you've done. You've had some exciting accomplishments, recognition in the philanthropic space. Maybe tell the listening audience a little bit more about some of those endeavors. I know you even started up a school. So of your philanthropic accomplishments, what's been your most proud moment there?
No doubt, starting up a school in the city of Chicago was pretty amazing. Literally started from the ground up. It's always a lot of fun seeing things grow, I will say that. And working with an amazing team of people. I was the treasurer at the school. When we started, there was a total of 7 students. And so really, really tiny. And today it is over 250 students and on a campus on the northwest side of Chicago. And it's really, it's amazing. It was absolutely amazing in terms of seeing the growth, and it's an amazing school.
That's cool. Did they create a statue or anything of you, or?
No. They for sure not me. I was simply doing the treasurer work. I was doing at night. I was doing all the payroll and all the accounting, etc. Again, it was a startup school, so there was no bookkeeper at the time. That was basically my job, as well as keeping track of fundraising and making sure letters went out, etc. So when I started again, it was really a shoestring budget, headmaster, teachers, and an office person myself. And now, again, it's way larger, much bigger, more staff, etc. It's a real school.
Well, thanks to your efforts, and I'm sure gracious giving of time and energy to make that happen. Well, that's fantastic. So you recently came on and also opened up our Midwest office. You've held multiple positions of leadership in both independent firms, similar to Centura, but also at large public institutions in doing finance. So as you were considering a transition and coming to an RIA, obviously us, what was it that really you were trying to solve for? What areas that in your business plan or in your client base were not really being addressed to the level that you were thinking was either they need what they were telling you they wanted, or ultimately where you saw the market going?
I think that the biggest challenge we have in the market today is expected future returns of both stocks and bonds. We've had an amazing run in both returns of stocks and bonds over the last 10 years, basically since 2010 or so. And it is likely that is not going to be repeated over the next 10 to 12 years. Expectations from all the large firms are basically in line with much lower returns. So that is going to be a problem for savers going in the future.
Absolutely.
And as such, there is a need to look for other opportunities that are out there. Those other opportunities include private real estate, private equity, items that are not necessarily available on an exchange. And that was something that is out there. Other RIAs are doing it. And that was something I was not able to do, not because it wasn't a good investment idea, but for other other historical structural reasons that are not really germane, but it's something that I felt was needed. In addition, those type of investments require a greater degree of due diligence because of the fact that there's not annual reports, there's not 10Ks, there's not all the information that you would get from either a public investment, either a mutual fund or ETF or a stock or bond, et cetera. You don't have that level of information, which means that you really need to do a greater degree of scrutiny in terms of making sure who are you partnering with. And that was really exciting to find at Centura that there was that bench that all they're doing is investments full time. So
yeah, absolutely.
I would say that's probably, I mean, that's one issue, but it's a really important issue for investors. You know, the belief, Jeremy Siegel, Wharton professor, he's come out and publicly said he thinks that investors are going to go more into stocks. From 60% to 75-25 could be the new 60-40, according to Jeremy Siegel, as investors are desperate to look for a return and to be potentially for yield. And so has that happened today? No, but obviously it's a concern that he has in terms of what do you do about a low return environment, potentially take on more risk. Well, that's okay, but you have to know the other side is that taking on risk includes risk of loss, which for people who are heading into retirement, that's not a great situation to be in either, because that's the worst time to take on risk because they're retired, they're pulling money out. They don't have the time to make up that return if something goes awry.
Sure.
So looking for other places to look for return, increased diversification, naturally no guarantees, but looking for other areas, I think, is going to be more and more critical for investors. And you certainly see that of the institutions. The institutions have been doing that for years now.
So outside of investments, which I know is a passion of yours, what other areas did you see as gaps or issues you needed to try and solve for?
I would say the other thing that really enticed me with Centura was the depth and breadth of the team in terms of, as you said, I have a lot of credentials behind my name and have worn a lot of hats, but certainly it's impossible to be an expert on everything. There's too much information. It's moving too fast. There's changes all the time that are happening. And aligning myself with a group that had that depth and breadth, that if I have a question on a certain issue, I can go to the financial planning, tax planning group, and I can ask them additional questions. That there's people who are full-time doing insurance, and I can look at an insurance policy, whether the client has it in the company that they're working for, that they individually own it, and I can go to the insurance team and say, how is this working? What's going on? And having them provide me that level of deep skill is something that is a huge benefit for someone, for me to be able to then come back to the clients and offer that. And then I think the last thing is the differentiators for the firms is always going to be client service, being able to do what you say you're going to do. And for clients, that's ultimately important. There are specific things that need to get done in terms of contributions need to be done by a certain time, required minimum distributions need to be a certain time, et cetera. And being able to have a team of experienced professionals who are doing that client service work is really critical, especially right now. We live in a post-COVID world where there's been so much change, so much turnover of people, at making sure that you have a team behind you that has that level of experience, can do that work has been critical. Really important for myself and for my clients.
Yeah, let's talk about your clients a little bit. So obviously they're still, I'll call it onboarding at the firm here, but maybe you can talk a little bit about who your client base is, who generally you're serving in the Midwest market, and really what are they most in need of in terms of support services and or just general financial planning?
Yeah, I would say, again, I don't have anything to compare this to because I'm not from California, but I would say Midwest tends to be a certain certain type of maybe demographic personality. They tend to be very savvy in terms of really, if you say something to them, they're going to look it up. They're going to verify, what is this investment? What's going on? What's the firm you're working with, et cetera. So really a firm that likes to verify as well. And so trust but verify. They are also, a lot of people are what I call millionaire next door. A lot of people are people who have worked hard all their life, and they have built up a solid nest egg. A lot of it is in retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks, Roth IRAs, et cetera, and in various walks of life. So work with a lot of professionals, doctors, lawyers, et cetera, as well as business owners who have, again, worked a business for a number of years, have had some success in the business, and are looking for advice in terms of financial planning, tax planning, et cetera. One of the things that I was able to do is I am what's called an EdSlot Master Elite IRA Advisor, and someone who knows IRAs and Roth IRAs and 401ks, the rules really well. And considering that that's where the majority, for a lot of people, the majority of their money is in those investments, a good portion of it for sure, knowing how that works and how that relates to all their other investments in their financial plan has been a critical advantage for me and for the clients.
And so obviously we didn't mention all of your credentials, but outside of having a MBA and a CFP, you're also a CFA. And for those that don't know, Chartered Financial Analyst account, right? And then also a CPA. So, one of the things that we obviously hold high or focus on here is tax planning, and having someone with a CPA background obviously helps our capabilities, as well as you provide expertise when it comes to tax planning. So what was it about Centura versus other prior firms that you've worked with, or just ones that you're aware of, that makes that kind of tax planning approach much more unique in the market?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And that certainly was a distinct advantage that Centura had that was really appealing to me as being a CPA. I certainly keep up with the literature, the technical literature, and look at tax savings opportunities, and felt that there was things that I have learned about, read about, studied, et cetera, in terms of sophisticated tax planning strategies that Centura was doing. And there's a saying from Yogi Berra that in theory and practice, there's no difference between the two. In practice, there is. And so seeing a firm that was doing these strategies and implementing them day in, day out is way different than reading about it in, again, the technical literature. And so working with a team that was doing that was really exciting for me, who, again, is a CPA, really likes to dig into those things and gives me an opportunity to offer clients new strategies that I wasn't really able to do before. Again, because doing it in theory and doing it in practice are two very, very different things. So having that depth and breadth of the bench, learning new things, being able to offer that to clients is really exciting. And I don't know many people who are doing those type of strategies here in Minneapolis, frankly.
That's great. So in terms of someone who might be listening to this for the first time, getting to know you, and you're really trying to bring those services to the local market, what are the situations in which you think would be a good fit for someone to come in and reach out and try and connect with you?
Yeah, the situation that these strategies really work is if you are earning $1 million or more in adjusted gross income, in income, and you're looking for a way to offset that tax burden, and looking for strategies to defer or reduce that tax burden. The second situation is if you have a situation in life that there is a movement of assets due to death, divorce, or a sale of assets, or either real estate or business. And the third is if you're looking for estate planning advice specifically individuals over 12 million in assets or couples over 24 million. That being said, the rules are going to change in 2026. All that's going to likely drop to 6 million for an individual, 12 million for a couple. So something to really keep in mind. Minnesota is a little bit different. And that is that the Minnesota state estate tax exemption, say that
that's a tongue
5 times
twister,
fast, is $3 million per person. And the estate tax is now up to 13%, the state estate tax. So even those clients who have collectively $3 million or more can benefit from some of the estate tax advice and services that we're providing. Because again, you have $1 million, you have $4 million an individual. Now you're talking about an additional $130,000 of Minnesota state estate tax. And there are ways that we can help out.
Yeah, absolutely. I know here in California, we call it the sunshine tax. What do you call it in Minneapolis?
I don't know if we have a name for it at this point in time.
All right.
But it's a great state to live. There's all kinds of services that we have in terms of beautiful parks and bike paths. I think we have more than Oregon. We're either number 1 or number 2 in terms of bike paths.
And you're an avid biker too.
And I like to bike. So there's some wonderful things that we have in the state of Minnesota, and it costs. And the state is charging you for it.
There you go. So, one of the things that we focus on here is working in teams. And obviously, at the moment, you're our lone outpost there in the Great White Midwest. But in terms of building a team around you and having, obviously, we have support for you. But what does that environment look like in terms of bringing a team on for you in the local market? Because I know in many cases, people do want to still meet in person. They do want to know that there's more than one individual that's taking care of their most prized assets. So how do you see that team evolving over the next short period of time?
Yeah, I would say 2 things. And one of the great things about Centura, again, depth and breadth of talent. And for me, it doesn't feel like I'm a sole outpost at all. I feel like there is a huge team that's behind me that I'm working with day in, day out. And so while it may seem I'm the only person here, it doesn't feel that way to me at all.
That's great.
And so people have been getting to know some of the people here at Centura, sitting in on meetings, working with them. And that's been really great. Keep in mind, I have clients that are across the United States, in California, in Florida, Illinois, Michigan, Boston, etc. And so they're getting online, working with me. It doesn't make a difference that I'm the only person here or that the person supporting me is in Delaware or Washington or California, etc. Because it's all one of the great things or surprise, I guess, from COVID is that talent doesn't need to be local.
Absolutely. Yeah, we certainly have changed our model post-COVID in terms of bringing the best talent on, regardless of where they happen to sit. And technology helps bring us all together. So totally agree with that.
So now, that being said, the goal is to increase the number of people locally and in the Minneapolis marketplace. And that is to increase both number of advisors so that there's a larger team to support clients here in Minneapolis and support people who want to meet in person, which we're happy to do, as well as support staff as well. So we are starting to work on trying to find additional advisors and support staff, and it's really exciting.
That's great. So one of the things that I think you characterized Centura with is entrepreneurial environment. What is it that most, in that context, given you've worked in big companies and small companies and everything in between, what is it that most attracted you in terms of that environment, or how do you see that benefiting the client outside of some of the areas that we talked about?
Yeah, the way that I look at it is it's the difference between a speedboat and an aircraft carrier.
Okay.
So, working for the Fortune 500 companies, and I've done that, is like working on an aircraft carrier. And there are some benefits to doing that in terms of, better cafeteria and those kind of, if you imagine an aircraft carrier, there's certain advantages to having an aircraft carrier. But there are some advantages to working on a speedboat, being on a speedboat as well, which is a more entrepreneurial environment. And that means that you can maneuver really quickly. If you want to make a change on an aircraft carrier, you can imagine it takes time to slowly turn the ship. And so for me, what's been exciting is that entrepreneurial environment in terms of the marketplace is changing rapidly, the geopolitical environment is changing rapidly, and being able to pivot really quickly is something that I enjoy, and that's what I like about working for a smaller firm with that entrepreneurial spirit. What I like specifically about Centura is that even though it is a smaller firm, you still have some of that expertise, right? A larger firm used to be, I don't think it exists anymore, but it used to be like a Fortune 500 firm had like a library and a librarian. And you were doing research, you could call the librarian. I think they got rid of that now, actually. But it used to be that if you were doing research on a company, et cetera, you called the librarian, you would look up certain things, et cetera. To here at Centura, if I have a question on things, there are people that I can go to. So again, it's not just me. And that's where I felt like in this specific case, it's a little bit larger than a speedboat, but it has that maneuverability. So it's I think it's the best of both worlds in my mind.
That's great. Well, I appreciate you taking me through both your background and the clients you serve and where you're going in terms of building out our capabilities, both nationally as well as locally. So in terms of just wrapping things up, any specific words of advice or information that you'd like to share? And if nothing, then maybe we can give the listening audience your contact information should they want to reach out and make a connection.
Sure. I would say our goal is really to help people and make their life better, and in a variety of aspects. Our expertise is financial planning and making that financial plan work towards realizing their goals. We think that it's an opportunity for people to be aspirational. Really, what is rewarding to me is when people are like, I never thought I could do X, and here I am doing it. To me, that's the reward, and seeing that in terms of whatever it is that they want to do. We're not here to judge what they want to do. Our goal is to make sure that they can see that opportunity exists. And we do that via goal planning and financial planning and tax planning and investment management. And that's basically what we do. And really our whole reason for being is to serve the clients and make their lives better. So Absolutely. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. In terms of reaching me specifically, my email is Smeisler, Meisler at CenturaWealth.com. And my phone number is 612-895-1636.
Well, fantastic. Well, Seth, thank you for taking some time out of your busy morning to join me, and appreciate you sharing more about yourself with those that are curious, and also ongoing listeners to the Live Life Liberated podcast. So with that, Eric, I will hand it back to you to close out the show.
Oh, I'm more than happy to. But before I do that, Seth, I love that analogy with the boats, because when you were talking about that, I have been on this journey, this adventure with Centura since day one. And it's been fun. And the information that they bring, the education they bring to the audience, you're exactly right. When you were saying that, I was picturing one of those big jet boats, that you can see. I know there's some in Chicago. There's Mexico. They've got them where you can fit like 50 to 100 people on this gigantic jet boat, but it pivots quickly and it's able to turn quickly. And I love that about Centura, is that they have been frontline with all the information, especially when tax law changes have come across and different things that have happened in the market. They're there for the education of the listener. And I'm so glad you're part of the team. Plus, I know the fact that you just know Jonathan looks great in a captain's hat. So with that, I do believe I'll round this up before I get fired. Again, Jonathan, thank you so much for bringing Seth on. Seth, thank you for being here. And our last thank you, of course, goes to you, listening audience. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Live Life Liberated podcast with the team from Centura Wealth Advisory. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when they come out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. And this makes it really easy to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at Centura Wealth Advisory, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Live Life Liberated podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Centura Wealth Advisory. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Centura Wealth Advisory. Centura is an SEC registered investment advisor with its principal place of business in San Diego, California. Centura and its representatives are in compliance with the current registration and notice filing requirements imposed on SEC registered investment advisors, in which Centura maintains clients. Centura may only transact business in those states in which it is notice filed or qualifies for an exemption or exclusion from notice filing requirements. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Tax relief varies based on client circumstances, and all clients do not achieve the same results.